Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be making over this table and also doing a few thrift flips to go in a vignette. I've already sanded the top of this table and gotten rid of all the finish because this table is such a plain little table. That I feel like it needed a little character, and I felt like it would really help to do the top in the natural wood and just do an antiquing wax on it. So I'm just going to be painting this bottom white. Now I'm not real crazy about this scallop design here, but it is what it is. I got this in some furniture in an estate sale, I think, and I didn't pay very much for it, and it's the size that I need for this little area that I need to add a little vignette to. So this table is just what I'm going to make work. So I'll give this a couple of coats of the linen white chalk paint from Rust-Oleum, and I'm not sponsored by Rust-Oleum or anyone, but I'm just telling you some of the products that I'm using because I get a lot of comments asking what I'm using, and so I just wanted to make that clear. And so now I'm trying a new product because although I'm not sponsored by Dixie Belle, I have just recently become a Dixie Belle dealer. I sell it in my store. And this is the first time that I have tried their antiquing wax, and so I was trying to decide what I thought of it, and a lot of these brown waxes have too much red in them, and I was worried that would be the case with this one, but it absolutely was not. I love the color of this wax. So I'm just putting a good coat all over, and a lot of times when I'm doing wax, I do a little section and then wipe it off, but I wanted to make sure that this took really well, so I went over the entire piece, and then I went back and wiped down the entire piece. And I was really happy with the look that I got. And then when it dried well, the feel of this table was just really good. I mean, I was really happy with how protected it felt. So now I'm just taking a damp cloth and wiping on the little raised areas and doing some light distressing, and I do that on the entire piece. And then I'll be going over the legs and the bottom with a clear wax, and then this piece will be finished. And now, the first item that I'm going to be working on to go in this vignette is going to be a little tiered tray. And I found these two pieces at a thrift store, and they came just like this. Now, I don't know what this is for. If you know, drop me a comment. I could not figure out what this was. But it's a good raw wood, and I thought it would be great for a tiered tray. So I like for my tiered tray to be on legs, and I mentioned in one of my earlier videos that I was able to buy a bunch of these little riser feet at a really good price. So they should last me for a while, but these are just perfect for this tray. So here I'm trying another product, and this is the Tight Bond glue, and I was really happy with how this worked because a lot of the glues, I have a problem with them sliding before they're dry, and I didn't have that issue with this one. And not only did I not have the issue with this one, the immediate hold was pretty decent. Normally when I put these trays on and I try to turn them over because I like for the weight of the tray to be on those feet when it dries. But generally that's not an option for me because they always try to fall off. But this one, I just gave it, less than a minute. I haven't sped this up at all. This is literally what time it took me. And I was able to just kind of quickly turn that over, and I didn't have any problem at all with these feet slipping. And as you can see here, I just made sure they were good and snug, and then I flipped it over, and it worked out perfectly. I've had a lot of questions about products that I use, and so many of my craft items I've had for so long that I have no idea where I got many of my stencils and many of my stamps. I will say that the majority of my stencils and stamps have came from Amazon or Hobby Lobby, and I'll say that most of them came from Amazon. But here I am gluing. This is just a spindle from a bed, and we've just cut a section of that spindle, and the height, this is about 6 inches. What height you use is completely up to you. I'm just reading on that glue there to see how it dries, and I read that it dries clear, so, and it's also paintable. But now here I'm just gluing these other tiers on, and like I said, this worked out really well for this wood, and it also didn't take very long at all for this to dry. Now here's the thing about a square tiered tray is if you don't get it lined up well, you will notice it like you can here, and I have to go back and fix that. But I was really happy with how this piece turned out. And I do take another bed spindle, just the top of a bed spindle, and glue that on the top. And the main purpose of that is just about the look. I just felt like it looked better with that on there. But definitely when this dries, you can pick this tray up with that handle. But for me, it was just more about the look. Okay, so now I'm going to paint this galvanized picture. And I'm just going to paint it black. So I give this 2 coats. This is a picture that I've had. I bought several of them years ago to sell in the store from some wholesale company. And the galvanized at the time was selling really good, but it doesn't sell well at all now. So I'm just going to paint this remaining picture and hope that it sells this way. Now here is a rolling pin that I also thrifted, and it was $2.99, and I know that because I had 2 price stickers on it. But I'm just gonna paint this and decoupage it, and I'm not worried about doing that because that little sticker also said as is, and it is because this rolling pin is cracked. So I already know it's not food safe, because if you go to roll out your dough or whatever you're rolling with this, that food is going to get up in that crack, and it's not going to be safe anyway. So I'm just making this rolling pin to be decorative only, and it'll be obvious to the buyer because it's going to be decoupaged. But I thought decoupage was the only way that I would hide that crack, and so I just felt like that was the best option for this. And obviously I'll make sure that they do realize it isn't food safe when they buy it. So just painting these handles alone is making a very big difference in this rolling pin. And adding the antiquing wax that I'm going to be adding will also make a big difference. But I just give these handles 1 coat, let them dry, and do some distressing on the handles because I want it to look, have that vintage look. And now I'm going over where I sanded with this antiquing wax, the same wax that I used on the table. And it works out really well on the handles, but I learn in working with this, after I do the handles, I start to put some on those ends and realize that this wood is too porous for this thick of a wax. So I change waxes and change over to one that I have watered down, and it's actually a Waverly antiquing wax. And always with the Waverly antiquing wax, I add some yellow to it because it has so much red in it, and I just don't like that red look. So again, I just added some yellow and watered it down. And it's not a pasty wax, it's a liquid wax. So it's easy to add some color and add water to. So I just give this a coat all over and wipe it off. And one coat is all it takes. Now, I maybe should have done my decoupage first. But I had no issues with it sticking, so this worked out. I just let it dry, and then I did my decoupage. Now here what I'm doing is decoupaging with some napkins. And as you can see here, this is a 3-ply napkin. And so you're only going to decoupage with 1 ply. And in this case, it's going to be that ply with the print on it, obviously. So I'm just going to be decoupaging this onto my rolling pin, and I'm not going to cut ahead of time. I'm just going to kind of cut as I go. So I'll just wrap this until it's covered, and then I'll cut my remaining off. And I'm not even going to cut that end until it dries, because I'll just use sandpaper at that point. And when I sand against that edge, it will cut that neatly off and give it a good finished edge. I buy these rolling pins at thrift stores anytime they're a good deal, because they sell really well in my store. People like to decorate with them by putting them in crocks and just laying them with a vignette. They just sell really well. It used to be that I could only sell the antique ones, but now I can sell any rolling pins. So like I said, I just go over this this whole rolling pin with this napkin, and then I'll cut the remaining at the end here off. Now I'm using the satin finish Mod Podge here, and not by choice. I like to use the matte finish, but the last time I used it, which was just a couple of days ago, I misplaced it, and we've turned the store upside down today trying to find it, and I finally just gave up and used this satin finish. But it still turns out fine. It doesn't have a shiny appearance at all to it. And I'm going to be going over it anyway when it dries. I like to kind of burnish it, and so I just take the sandpaper, a light grit sandpaper, and go over the entire piece anyway. So I really don't know why I was spending all that time trying to find that. So now that this tier tray is dry, I'm just giving the whole thing 2 coats of this linen white chalk paint. Obviously, I'll let it dry between coats, but a couple of good coats was enough to cover this. Now, I will say that I did have to go over this top piece here with some clear wax after that first coat, because I got some bleeding. And I guess it was where that old bed had that old stain on it, and it tried to pull some color in it. So I just gave it a coat of Rust-Oleum clear coat in the matte finish. And you wouldn't have to do it in the matte finish. You could do satin, or you can even do the semi-gloss. But this, I just keep the matte in case I need to top coat with it. So here I'm just putting this stencil on here. This is one that has 2 in 1, and I'm just kind of taping off that one side and putting the stencil on. Now I did have to do extra holding on this because this stencil has been used a lot and it's starting to kind of pull up, but I didn't have any problems with that. Now this next step, I will say I messed up right here. I decided to try the Dixie Belle Easy Peasy Clear Wax, and the idea is that you just spray that on and wipe it off. Well, I messed up because it started taking that chalk paint off immediately. Maybe I didn't let it dry enough. Maybe I should have clear coated it first. But I feel like the idea of the wax is for that protection. So a lot of times I don't generally clear coat first. But then I thought, okay, let's just see if I can wipe all that off the black. And it just kept pulling more and more. And I thought, well, I'm just going to wipe the whole thing off and paint over it. And then I started to like the way that it looked. It's harder to tell in this picture or in this view, but it just gave it a distressed look, and I thought, well, I can live with that, and it'll probably sell. If it doesn't sell, then I'll just paint over it then. Okay, so here I am sanding that excess napkin off, and it's very easy if you let it dry to just kind of sand that off, and it gives it a good clean finish. And now I'm just taking that sandpaper and kind of burnishing over the whole thing. So this is where it really didn't matter that I had that satin finish, and I'm taking the same sandpaper. This is a 220 grit, I think, sandpaper, and I'm just giving this a light distressing all over. And then after I've done this, then I give it a clear coat. Now I could have waxed it, but clear coating was just quicker, and I just took it outside and sprayed it. And that's all that there is to this tiered tray. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great evening. God bless you and your family.